Hello, my name is MCRN. You might know me from my hit rap tracks like Hemoglobin, Hip Hop Hippie Harm Reduction, and My Clot from the Broadway musical Hamilton. Today, you're in for a very special theatrical treat titled The Nurse as Activist, or Nurse Nurse Revolution, or Just Another Day at the Office. Allow me to introduce the cast. From Lunch with a Theorist, it's Canadian nursing legend, Adeline Falk Raphael. Hello, nursing students! Next up, you know them, you love them. They're your classmates and community health practice partners, Stuart and Ava. They've been muddling their way through a brand new placement right here in Castlegar with Selkirk Healthy Campus, trying to fix food security. What are they doing? They don't know. Let's follow our buddies on their nursing journey and see what they've learned. Hi everybody. Our next player is Bibliography Bob. The annotated bibliography from our first assignment. Hi. I got submitted at the beginning of February. Did I miss anything? And who's this? Why, it's Informatics Irene. Hello, Irene. How the heck are you doing? Oh, I'm great. Are there any non-English speakers here? Does someone need language interpreting services? Nobody ever calls me. I can speak 87 languages. But I swear, not a single person from the Kootenays ever calls me. I'm afraid not, Irene. We're here to synthesize Stuart and Ava's cohort's learning this semester. Our next thespian is Dorothea Orem. She's representing Stuart's nursing specialty presentation on mental health nursing and her self-care theory of nursing. Welcome, Dorothea. Oh, thank you, MCRN. I'm such a big fan. Have you been looking after yourself? I love that little joke. Who could forget the direct aid paper from Nursing 342 Global Health? Here's Global Gus. You and Stu sure did spend a lot of quality time together, didn't you, Gus? Yeah, we sure did, and we actually learned a lot. Remember when we met and all he knew about food security was the 3 sources Bob has? That guy, he thinks he knows about food security. It's bad for college students. Your brain needs calories. Stop the presses, Bob. I got 17 sources. And that's just the one Stuart cited. I'll blow your mind, dude. All right, Gus. It's not a contest. All of the assignments contributed something valuable to Stuart's understanding of community health in a local and global context, as well as providing opportunities to apply nursing theory and professional practice. Now that we've had a chance to meet the players, let's begin our nursing journey through semester 6. What did we learn? Which classes were the assignments actually for? Is anybody gonna use this stuff in real life? We begin in the forest of class content. Here's our plucky nursing students now. Whoa, Ava. Having a brand new practice placement sure is scary. What are we gonna do? I don't know any more than you. Something about food security? Cool. Well, I guess we'd better get started. Who's that over there? I'm Madeline Falk Raphael, the theorist you'll be picking in a few weeks in Nursing 341 Professional Practice. We're going to be great friends. I developed the critical caring theory. Oh, cool. Does that have something to do with people in critical care in the ICU? No, not at all. You really never heard of me? Seriously, Stuart. You have like 3 books on nursing theory that weren't even required for class. My theory is about critically examining how the history of society and culture, relationships of power, and the discipline of nursing have evolved, and what that means for our work and the well-being of the people in our care. Don't forget that care part, because that's why all of us are really here, to provide care. Wow, that's awesome. We love critically reflecting on stuff like that. Do you know anything about food security? We have a community health practice placement project on campus, but it's a new placement that no one's ever done before, and we're figuring it out as we go along. Community health is a process. It's a journey we go on to co-create a healthy future and a vibrant present, full of happiness and joy. Really? No, not really. There's plenty of joy and happiness, but there's a lot of inequity and systemic oppression to deal with along the way. Let's think about your project. Who's the patient? How can we find out what they need? What is keeping them from getting what they need? Can we make a plan they feel connected to that serves their needs? Who needs to be on board with the plan? Can we figure out if the plan worked after we do it? Developing a community health intervention is a lot of work. Well, that's good news, because we have to spend 78 hours doing it, and it's still the beginning of the semester, and we haven't learned anything about developing community health promotion projects yet. So, let's see if we can find out a little more about food security on college campuses. Why, who's that I see? Well, hi. I'm Bibliography Bob. I have 3 sources, and I'd really like to tell you about them. Oh, thanks, Bob. Nice to meet you. Now I remember having a lot of fun exploring food security with you. Colleges are great communities. Ours is rural and has a lot of international students. And honestly, we don't really know anyone from outside of our nursing cohort. Oh, well, you'll learn from your lit review that research is curiosity in action, and it takes you to places you had not imagined. It will take you to a special place called evidence-based practice. It can help you learn where to start by knowing what peer-reviewed academic research has come before you. Thanks, Bob. Now that we know something about our topic, we can get started making a plan. Yes, now you can identify the needs and barriers to experiencing equitable health and well-being. Perhaps we can learn something about the tools that make this possible and how to use them to improve our nursing practice. Why, here comes Irene. You remember her, don't you? Hello, everyone. It's great to see you. I hear that you're developing a community health promotion plan addressing food security here at the college. I am a tool that provides language interpreting services to the patients in your care. I help you ensure that patients who don't speak English maintain informed consent and are able to participate as co-creators of their care plans, which is so important for newcomers to Canada. Some people think I'm just a voice on a phone and it's okay to replace me with Google Translate, but using me properly is fundamental to patient safety and autonomy. Who knew that interpreting technology was so deeply tied to nursing ethics and safe nursing care? I really like what she said about caring for newcomers to Canada. Let's collect some qualitative and quantitative data about how international students experience food security on campus. That's a great idea. Developing a community health plan is all about understanding people's needs. You bet. We still don't know what we're doing, but we're doing something. Oh, who are you? My name is Dorothea Arem, originator of the self-care theory of nursing. My whole thing is that people should be able to meet their own health and wellness needs, If they need a nurse, either the system is broken or they're experiencing illness. That sounds so empowering. If the patient is supposed to care for themselves, then what is the work of nurses? Oh, you nursing students are so great. First of all, nursing is an art where we use our training and our experience to provide specialized care tailored exactly to the patient's needs until they can care for themselves or define their ongoing therapeutic relationships with care providers. Often, the art of nursing involves education, distilling what we know for the patient so they can make the best use of the resources available to them. So, are you saying we can use our nursing ways of knowing as a lens to create a community health intervention specific to the environment of a rural community college in BC while meeting the unique needs of international students? I love thinking like a nurse. Maybe we can do something really special with our practice placement using our nursing brains. You need to use a systemic and reflexive approach if you want to understand clients' needs. You might even need to start thinking upstream. Did I hear somebody talking about upstream health solutions? That's what I'm all about, baby! Why give a person a fish or a brick of government cheese when you can expose the roots of inequity that cause the social determinants of health affecting the community? Wow, Gus, that's some powerful stuff. We decided to be nurses so that we could care for people. Now I'm starting to see how nurses have the capacity to care for whole communities. Well, let me blow your minds a little bit more. Friends, food security is not just a lack of food. Food security is the availability, access, utilization, and stability of food systems. That's right. Food security is the product of food systems. Systems designed by people in power. You mean people in power throughout history who used their power to oppress others so they could get more power and control? We learned about power in week 9 of Nursing 341, Nurse Professional Practice. That is exactly what I mean. In Canada and all over the world, food security was weaponized by the settler colonial project. Colonial practices continued to perpetuate poor food security for Indigenous communities, especially in the North. Decolonization and food security still have a long way to go. Food sovereignty is the hot new concept. It embodies the work of decolonization by returning the control and development of food systems to the people using them and honoring their indigenous ways of knowing, being, and doing. Damn, Gus, I can see why you're so passionate about this. How can people not realize that colonialism is alive and well and causing harm to the people we care for? You know what? I think food sovereignty honors the dignity of Indigenous people in a way that feels unfamiliar to the settler colonial mindset. Too bad everyone can't take semester 6 of the UVic and Partners nursing program and learn about the United Nations Declaration on the Rights of Indigenous Peoples and other aspects of Indigenous health called for in Call to Action number 24 of the Report of the Truth and Reconciliation Commission. Maybe you two should think about addressing your teaching and learning to the people making the decisions around here. People experiencing food insecurity don't need you showing up and telling them that they need a sandwich, or even that the definition used by the United Nations states that food security exists when all people, at all times, have physical and economic access to sufficient, safe, and nutritious food to meet their dietary needs and food preferences for an active and healthy life. The people in power need to understand that the best intervention is an upstream, systemic intervention based on evidence-based practice and data collection focused on specific populations. You're right, Gus. That's exactly what we're going to do. We're going to share our nursing knowledge with Selkirk leadership. Now that you've decided to focus on an upstream solution by approaching people in positions of power, let's take a look at Nursing 341. In Week 9, you learned about power and bias. We sure did. Our class content included an essay by Jane George called Biopowder, Agamben, and Emerging Nursing Knowledge. It looked at how the philosopher Giorgio Agamben's concept of biopower, or power over life and death, applies to nursing theory. Foucault referred to biopower in terms of how social processes influence living and dying, while Agamben himself applied the term to state actors exerting power over the life and death of populations. As in the case of the Holocaust, Georges uses both of these perspectives to describe how the discipline of nursing uses these epistemologies of power over life exerted by social and political forces to understand the role of nurses in addressing social justice issues. Georges is Dean of the Hahn School of Nursing at the University of California, San Diego. She lives near the U.S.-Mexico border and applied Agamben's epistemology of power to the socio-political implications of the connection between international migration and the health of migrants. Ultimately, she concludes that we need to teach our students and remind each other that the very construction of nursing knowledge is a political act and is part of a larger social process of policy formulation in which those with biopower determine who will live and who will die. That's a lot of responsibility. It's hard to stay positive when being critical. But if we shift our perspective from oppression to solidarity and resistance, we can keep it positive. Stuart's going to Guatemala, and he keeps talking about solidarity. Yes, I do, Ava. I was having a hard time dealing with historical and current power imbalances and trying to stay positive while being a critical thinker in a world full of oppression. Until I heard a great interview on the radio the other day with a Cuban historian who was talking about the history of tobacco cultivation in the Caribbean. The interviewer asked what she thought of tobacco's role in the colonial history of oppression and slavery. She responded that her perspective is not one of oppression, but one of resistance. She described tobacco as a sacred plant to the Carib and Taino peoples, a source of income to communities of escaped slaves in Cuba and Jamaica, and how after the 1804 revolution, the independent nation of Haiti used tobacco to establish economic self-determinism, with abolitionists around the world proudly smoking Haitian tobacco. What a difference perspective can make. That's not the traditional narrative of colonialism or tobacco. You know, my critical caring theory is a great tool for nurses to examine historical and current power dynamics. Let's have a look at the model I made of my theory. The roots go from Florence Nightingale as an advocate for social justice to the primacy of caring to nursing, as described in Watson's Caring Science, to modern feminist and critical theory. The trunk involves preparing oneself to embody critical caring in ways of knowing, being, and doing, and of developing trusting relationships with the communities and people in our care. The branches are the process. Let's see how they might apply to your project with Selkirk Healthy Campus supporting food security. The first branch is using a systemic reflexive approach. You mean like in our lit review? And when we reflected and acknowledged our knowledge deficit of international students' lived experience. Yes. And the second branch is engaging in transpersonal teaching and learning. Well, we had a focus group, and that was an experience in transpersonal learning from international students' experiences with food security. The third branch is providing and creating, maintaining sustainable environments for the patient or the client. Well, one of our recommendations is to encourage community support among students by connecting incoming international students with students from the existing previous cohort to facilitate food literacy in an unfamiliar environment, like letting them know where they can find unfamiliar foods or substitutes for foods from their home country that are more available in Canada. The fourth branch is meeting needs and building capacity. Well, another one of our recommendations is expanding access to food by improving transportation for students living in campus housing. For instance, the public bus system doesn't run on Sundays. And maybe Selkirk could encourage the public bus system to include Sundays or provide more service, their own private service on Sundays. The last branch is being open to attending spiritual or mysterious and existential dimensions. Well, we don't know how this will manifest itself in our project, but hey, we're open to it. All right. Well, allow me to add one new resource to the discussion. It's my article, Speaking Truth to Power, Nursing's Legacy and Moral Imperative. This article asks the question, what do we as nurses say when we encounter a power imbalance? Well, we respond by saying, I see this power imbalance harming the patients in my care. My role as a nurse is defined by caring. As a caring professional, I have a moral and professional imperative to alleviate their suffering. To quote myself, this obligation is a moral one related to nursing's privileged position in bearing witness to human suffering. Let's take this idea of the imperative to act for social justice as we move on to the second act. All right, Act 2. Hello, everyone. MCRN again. Welcome back to Act 2. In Act 1, we explored what we had learned from the class content and how it relates to caring for the community as our patient. Here's Act 2, where we will explore how this content can be applied to our nursing practice and how it relates to the nurse's role in promoting social justice. Whoa, that's pretty wild how all of our classes synthesize together to inform our understanding of community health. Let's see if we can learn some more about how to apply it to the patients in our care and in our nursing practice. That week 9 content about power really makes me feel like critical caring theory is the future of nursing, and that nurses can set the example for societal change through their day-to-day nursing practice. Hi everybody. I was just thinking that from the perspective of research and best practice, nurses are in a unique position to act as consultants and advocates. Remember what Dorothea Orem was saying about the art of nursing involving sharing specialized knowledge so clients can make informed choices about their health? Well, that's basically what you two are doing in your practice placement. It sure is, Bob. Thanks for sharing with us that nurses use their knowledge and research skills in their practice to aid patients and even politicians in their decision-making process. Oh, hi there. What a great conversation you're having about applying scholarship to your academic skills to your practice after graduation. My role in promoting patient safety, informed consent, and agency are super important ethical considerations for your nursing practice. Do you remember the communication continuum of language resources? It tells us that the fidelity or quality of interpreting and translation must match the patient's needs and facilitate their capacity for informed consent. Does your patient need a juice box, or do they need to have a conversation about a stigmatized subject that affects their ability to consent to health interventions? Thanks, Irene. In my nursing practice, I will educate my colleagues about the language support decision-making model and how to access interpretation technology. I will also evaluate my own second language use and ensure that I am competent and fluent before I provide care for non-English speakers in their primary language. Oh, hello, Dorothea. You know, I was just thinking, your self-care theory is easy to apply to mental health like we did during our nursing specialty presentation. But let's take a look at the self-care theory and creating healthy communities. Of course, nurses can use the self-care theory to develop community health initiatives and healthy public policy. When you consider that the community is the patient, you look for barriers to equitable access to healthy living and healthcare resources. My theory considers the environment has physical characteristics, intellectual characteristics, and cultural or community characteristics. We can intervene by acting for and doing for people, by guiding them, supporting them in caring for themselves. We can also provide an environment that supports their well-being, or we can act as educators, teaching patients how to make informed and healthy choices. I can see how your interventions really support patient agency. Nurses advocate for healthy public policy and educate policymakers to create an environment that supports the well-being of marginalized populations by addressing the systemic causes of social determinants of health. This is a great approach for nurses who want to practice the critical caring theory. You know what else is? What else it is? It's a great way to do the work of decolonization. Decolonizing your nursing practice is a way of being and a way of doing. It is an active and ongoing practice. You can engage with indigenous patient advocates to improve your cultural competency. More importantly than external resources, though, nurses can engage with patients by asking what is missing from our care and asking about how they are experiencing the hospital, our community intervention, or policy development. Wow, I really want to make questioning what is missing from the care we provide to Indigenous patients a part of my reflective practice, but I also want to make it part of the conversation between the nurses I work with as well. I'm reminded of the changes in how research is conducted under the supervision of the First Nations Information Governance Center. Their work is based on protecting Indigenous ownership, control, access, and possession of information researchers gather from and about them. It's an act of decolonial, radical collaboration. No research happens without Indigenous ownership, control, access, and possession. I think we should think about how we can apply the concept of Indigenous ownership, control, and access and possession to healthcare systems and delivery. I like the way you're thinking. That sounds like something that could be practiced at the point of care as well as at the highest levels of policy. You know what else can be practiced at the point of care and in policy development? The content from Nursing 341, Professional Practice, Week 12, Cultural Safety. Oh, gee, Gus, you have a great point there. Cultural safety is essential at every level of engagement. The class content included an article describing an extensive literature review by a group of researchers from Aotearoa, New Zealand, that explored the evolution of the concepts of cultural competency and cultural safety. The earliest definition of cultural competency they cite is from 1989. It's only 35 words long and describes a system of behaviors and attitudes that enable work in cross-cultural situations. By the end of the report, they propose a new 130-word-long definition of cultural safety involving critical self-reflection on how internal and cultural biases influence the care they provide to Indigenous patients. Being accountable for providing culturally sensitive care as defined by the recipient, and an understanding that it is incumbent upon healthcare workers to take action to create change in workplace culture. Hey guys. Oh. well, hey guys. Hey, it's Bibliography Bob here. From the Anno-Bib. You know the annotated bibliography. I heard Melissa call it an Anno-Bib one time, and I was like, whoa, that sounds pretty cool. I didn't really know I was like really that cool. But yeah, I heard you talking about the article about cultural safety in Aotearoa, and I was like, oh, I wonder if they want to know more about the connection between Aotearoa, New Zealand, and the history of the idea of cultural safety. I have a new resource. Actually, Bob, we would really like that. You know, I give you a hard time sometimes, but you know your stuff. This guy, he really knows how to dive into a resource. Thanks, Gus. The resource is Cultural Safety in Nursing, the New Zealand Experience by Elaine Paps and Harapeti Ramsden. It's from 1996. The authors describe how the people of Aotearoa, New Zealand recognize the disparity in well-being and health outcomes between Indigenous and settler colonial populations. In response, the community of nurses there began a process of self-examination that led to changes in nursing education and the development of what we now know as cultural safety. So, cultural safety comes from Aotearoa, New Zealand? No. Cultural safety comes from a process of deep critical self-reflection where the practitioner reconciles with their own inner biases. Okay, yeah, but, yes, but historically, the term and the process and its application in nursing comes from Aotearoa, New Zealand. Paps and Ramsden wrote, formalization of the concept of cultural safety began in 1988 at a hui in Christchurch, which was attended by nurse educators and Maori student nurses. A hui is a Maori word for a community meeting. In 1992, the body governing nurses there made cultural safety a requirement for nursing registrants and nursing curricula. Wow, so if it wasn't for nursing students who felt they had a responsibility to take action for social justice, by addressing the socio-cultural roots of health inequities in their communities, we might not have the concept of cultural safety? Well, yes and no. The article goes on to describe how the term and the practice of cultural safety were constantly evolving and belong to the larger global discourse of addressing power relationships between people giving and receiving care. But the role of student nurses in nursing education is very important to the history of cultural safety. Well, we think it's a great example of nurses and even nursing students being leaders and creators of societal change. It's starting to look like caring for people in a way that involves upstream solutions addressing social determinants of health stemming from long-standing power imbalances is a revolutionary act. Or, as some would call it, just being a nurse, doing regular nurse things, making the world a healthier place for everyone. No big whoop, just another day at the office. End of Act 2. MCRN here. Well, Stuart, we were going to do a third act, all about the nurse as activist, supporting community and global health by advocating for social justice. But I think we've done a pretty good job by including the concept in the ways that nurses apply critical caring theory in their work, their day-to-day work. Is there anything else you want to add? Well, my self-reflection on the semester brings me back to one of the roots of Falk Raphael's tree: caring. Caring is the foundation of what we do as nurses. The community as client, supporting patient autonomy, cultural safety, responding to global health inequities. They all come back to caring for people. I'm a pretty engaged person, thinking about power and injustice, and sometimes it's frustrating. I do myself and the people around me a disservice by letting that frustration turn into negativity. Returning to the perspective of caring helps me focus on solidarity, cooperation. I'm looking forward to my time in Guatemala this summer with the Selkirk International Community Health Nursing Practice Placement and the opportunity to learn from the communities we visit. I hope I can find the right combination of humility and curiosity to learn and absorb the wisdom of people who have faced adversity and responded by caring for one another with solidarity and cooperation.